Welcome to the 50th episode of Commercial Drones FM. Excuse this longer than usual intro, but we are at 50 episodes. That's halfway to 100. Insane. First of all, a mega shout out goes to the individuals who support the show on Patreon. Honestly, I probably wouldn't still be doing this if it weren't for you. To be honest, I mean, thank you so much for all the support. And I just wanted to share a few quick stats on how far we've come on the show so far. So the 50th episode actually coincides almost perfectly with the 1-year-old birthday of the podcast. So I launched this podcast on July 4th, officially July 4th, 2016. So the podcast turned 1 on July 4th, 2017. Happy birthday to the show. We have reached over 210,000 downloads of the podcast since then, which averages out to around 570 every single day, which blows my mind. And another thing of note is that we launched the first ebook, which is a companion piece to the Drone Industry Review quarterly podcast series. So this series dishes out the most important news from the commercial drone industry from the past quarter, the preceding quarter, and it gives it to you in under 20 minutes. So that's a special series for the podcast that I started recently, and for Q2, I released the first ebook on that. So for subsequent quarters, I'll be, releasing ebooks as well for those quarters. So the ebook I put out was for the Q2 Drone Industry Review, and you can get that ebook at commercialdrones.fm and just click ebook under the new extras menu in the top of the website there. You can also listen to those episodes, the Drone Industry Review podcast episodes. The Q1 2017 review episode was number 42. And the Q2 2017 episode was number 49. That was the previous episode, since this is lucky number 50. So let's go ahead and kick this off to the show. I don't want to take too long for anyone that is new joining us. A little bit about this episode. To preface this, it's an interview with the Cyberhawk CEO and co-founder Chris Fleming. I met up with Chris at the Exponential conference just a few months ago in Texas, and after a couple drinks, we decided that we needed to document our conversation. And Chris was actually, I hope he's out of the wheelchair by now. It's been a few months, but you'll hear that little story in the very beginning. And the audio, just a quick note, is it might sound a little bit off because we were using one of my more portable recording setups that I take with me whenever I'm traveling. So without further ado, here is episode 50 of Commercial Drones FM. Welcome to commercialdrones.fm, the podcast that explores the commercial drone industry, the people who power it, and the concepts that drive it. I'm your host, Ian Smith. Hey everybody, Ian here with Commercial Drones FM, and I'm in Dallas. I was standing in the Drone Stars lobby at the Aloft Hotel. Drone Stars was put on by Lucas van Ostrom and the Delft Aerial Robotics Group out of the Netherlands in Holland. And I was looking around for my scheduled guest, which was someone from Aerobotics, and they actually didn't wind up showing up. And so I look, and lo and behold, I find Chris Fleming, the CEO of Cyberhawk, standing at the bar right next to me, and I decided to go ahead and track him down and see if he'd be a guest tonight on the show. So, with that said, Chris, who's sitting right across from me as we sip on some drinks, welcome to Commercial Drones FM.
Thank you, Ian, and I'm only here for the free beer. So if that doesn't continue, I'm out of here.
You probably won't get very far before I track you down. I'll leave the audience to know.
Yeah.
Well, actually, hold on. No. What happened to your leg? So you're in a little
So you can't
mobile.
see me right now, but I have a cast from my foot up to my knee because 2 weekends ago I was up a tree in the garden cutting some branches off and sitting on a branch that wasn't able to support my weight, and I fell 20 foot.
Oof.
So I broke all the bones in my foot, and being a person that used to work professionally at height, it's a little bit embarrassing, but it's merely inconvenient at the moment because I've got my scooter, so I can get around.
There you go.
So it's not too bad.
Yeah, it's not too bad. So it's a nice scooter. First question, though, why didn't you use a drone to cut down that tree line?
Well, there are drones with chainsaws on them, and many people have sent me the links to those already on Facebook. But I thought I was a safer option doing it myself rather than using a drone in this case. But in the future, who knows?
We live and we learn.
Yeah.
So, okay, your background, you mentioned you used to climb up tall things. So, well, first to reiterate, CEO, co-founder of Cyberhawk, which is an awesome company that I'll tell my story of knowing the company about a little bit later. But what's your background? What are these tall things you used to climb up?
So myself and the other founders came from an oil and gas industrial inspection background. So we used rope access techniques, abseiling essentially, or rappelling as you'd say here in the US, and we would scale drilling derricks on offshore rigs, or we would abseil underneath platforms and we would carry out inspections of places that were difficult to reach. So we used this work positioning system to get to places and then carry out an inspection. And then, at great risk to ourselves, we would do that type of work in order to write an inspection report on something. And now what we're doing is we've seen the opportunity here and we're using another technique to gather that data and do the inspection faster, safer, and more accurately. And that's the reason for starting Cyberhawk.
So when did you start Cyberhawk? What year was it?
So Cyberhawk was started by my dear friend and co-founder Malcolm Connolly in 2008, and another friend, Douglas Walker. And they came to me and they said they're starting this company and it's a drone company. And they told me what they wanted to do, and they asked me if I was interested in being involved. And initially I said no. Well, I listened and I smiled and I said, under my breath, that sounds like a crazy idea. What can drones achieve and what can they inspect? They made me an offer I couldn't understand. So
not the typical offer, you couldn't something.
I was bored in my job. I'd spent 20 something years working offshore in the oil and gas industry all over the world, and was getting paid quite a lot of money for doing very little, to be honest. And so I decided that I wanted to be involved in something that was new, exciting, and had the potential to change my industry, which is inspection, and totally revolutionize it. And that's what drones are going to do, and that's what they are doing.
So that was in
2008, the company was formed.
2008?
Yeah, so we were doing this...
Ancient.
Yeah, in terms of, in comparison to other providers, we were doing this... In fact, we were almost too early, because when we started using, and we tried a number of platform manufacturers, and I won't name them, we had issues where we would fly their kit, and it would end upside down in a field. And it'd work for 10 minutes, then it wouldn't work, and then it'd work 2 flights, and then it'd crash. And then we would send it back to the manufacturer and say it's not up to the job. We had some moments in the back of our van where we would be, trying to carry out an inspection somewhere, and the equipment wouldn't work, it wasn't reliable enough, and we kind of really questioned whether we were doing the right thing and whether, the technology was going to meet our expectations.
That's really cool. So 2008, so that's not a recent drone company by any means. You guys have been around quite some time. And so my personal story with Cyberhawk is that in 2013, late 2012, 2013, I was interested in starting my own drone service company in Houston, focused on the big energy industry, energy capital of the world, wanted to go offshore, past helicopter experience, use drones to do things that helicopters and humans have to do. And so I started doing a bunch of research, and I found you guys, and I was just blown away because I didn't realize at that time in 2013 that there were these companies that were super professional, focusing on oil rig inspection from what it seemed like, inspecting oil rigs, flare tip inspections with drones. And then that's how I found out about Extending Technologies, the German UAV manufacturer, and the list goes on from there. And I just remember just idolizing you guys as a company, like, damn, this is like a drone service company that's like really serious. And so from that point on, I was just like, really fascinated with you guys. So yeah, you mentioned Malcolm Connolly, one of the other co-founders whom I met in London back when I worked at Delaire Tech, and then now seeing you at the bar in the bright yellow Cyberhawk shirt. Sealed the deal here, and it was good. I'm glad that Aerobotics didn't show up for the meeting now. But so tell us a little bit then. So what does Cyberhawk do? I mean, what do you guys do exactly? Like, what's your kind of mission statement? If you had to tell someone, in a couple minutes, like, what's the deal here?
So we're an asset inspection company, so we focus on inspecting things, and I guess we use a drone for that purpose. But for us, what we're delivering is an inspection report, and that's I think why a lot of companies who start in this industry fail, because they don't understand what you need to deliver to your client to meet their expectations. So. What Cyberhawk does is replace. I used to do rope access inspection reporting, so I would write a compelling report based upon my experience of climbing around something, inspecting it, and then giving my opinion on the condition of that asset. We're doing exactly the same thing, but we're just using a different device to capture the data. And what I say about data capture is that if you historically, when we did inspection, if you were to change the environment in which the person worked, if you made it colder, if you made it hotter, if you made it more uncomfortable for the person, then you would get a deviation in those results. You would get inferior quality because the person that was capturing the data didn't like what they were doing. Maybe they were hungry. So any time that you can do the data capture remotely, and we capture our data in a matter of minutes or hours versus hours or days in which we used to do before, and then you can analyze that data somewhere else, then you're likely to get better results. So historically, when you did rope access inspection, you might not find anything wrong because you might be terrified of the environment that you're working in. You might be hungry.
Nope, it's all good. Let's go.
And that's
winch me back up.
Invariably, what happens. So if you can capture that data remotely and analyze it somewhere else, you find more things wrong. And we never go on a job where we don't find defects and anomalies. So we write inspection reports. We deliver those to the client either electronically, or we have iHawk, which is our software platform for delivering results for transmission towers and utility towers, wind turbines and utility towers, for those markets. But for our oil and gas customers, we write detailed inspection reports, which you couldn't write unless you'd worked in that industry for a number of years yourself, because it just wouldn't meet muster.
So what I've seen actually is, I did another podcast recently, and actually I'm just seeing a trend really, and it's people that worked in an industry or knew really a lot about an industry and then identified the problems in that industry and then created a company to solve them. And the company didn't have to be a drone company, but given the technology and given the way that drones are so easy and cheap, etc., to operate, it just made sense, total sense to be a drone company. As in, they didn't start out to create a drone company to do anything. It was like, let's solve a problem we know there is. Oh, here's this piece of technology, drones, that kind of let us accomplish that. So whenever you were initially approached for Cyberhawk, were you like kind of skeptical of drones, or what was your whole, like, there was a little apprehension maybe? There was, because the technology was so new and so unreliable. And we had a huge issue with reliability of equipment in the early days. And one of the phrases that I used to use for our pilots was that if your hands aren't shaking, you're not flying for Cyberhawk. Because generally, every job we went on, we were terrified because they were world first. We've done 25 world firsts with the UAV. What are some of those world firsts?
So we did the first wind turbine inspection with a drone, we did the first oil rig inspection, the first under drone inspection, the first transmission tower inspection, first cooling tower, first internal chimney inspection.
Internal chimney inspection?
Yeah, so we've done internal chimney inspection.
What is, like, you fly a drone in the chimney of a plant or something?
Yeah. So one of our suppliers is Flyability, who manufacture the Helios shrouded drone, if you're familiar with that. But It's a device which is collision tolerant, so you can bounce it off things. So you can put it in environments where it's actually not possible to put a person. So we've done chimney inspections where they haven't been able to shut down the flue, so you have nasty materials going through a chimney, So you couldn't send a person in there.
And we're not talking, just to be clear, we're not talking like a residential chimney. We're talking a
No,
chimney
we're talking
at like
about a commercial chimney on an alumina refinery.
Okay, so this is a tall, like
125 meters.
Okay.
Yeah, sort of 400 feet high.
Wow.
And we're flying in there looking for cracks. And the only other method of doing that beforehand was to put somebody inside that in a basket on a crane. And because this chimney in particular, the one that I'm talking about, had bricks fall off, you don't want to put people in that environment, right? Even if they're wearing a hard hat and whatever. So
you might also breathe in some really toxic.
Yeah, well, you couldn't. You have to shut it down. For that. So we were able to keep.
Well, even still, I would just imagine there would be some type of like fumes or residual. I'm not going in there.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to. So, yeah, most of the places we work, it's industrial. We don't work in. We're not doing, real estate.
You're not Santa Claus coming down the chimney.
No, we're doing the dirty jobs that the drones are perfect to be deployed into to gather the data.
So you went down the chimney with this drone, and then what did you guys find cracks, and like, is there a light on the drone? I mean, can you tell us a little bit more about the operation itself and what the outcome was? We've never had anyone talk about this on the show before, so I'm fascinated.
So what we do is we fly the outside of the chimney first, and we create a 3D model of that using photogrammetry, and we shoot points off the chimney to make the dimensional model more accurate. And then we get a 3D model of that, and then we're able to pinpoint each and every defect on the outside of that chimney and measure it accurately to within millimeters. So then tell the owner of the chimney, okay, you have 127 defects on your chimney, this is the size of them, and this is the location. So if they choose to carry out repairs, when they go to their subcontractors, they can say it's 127 defects, and these are where they are, and this is what you need to fix them. So that's the outside part of it. The internal, we fly inside, and we're looking for major gross defects, and we'll fly top to bottom, and we'll try and do it in a planned, methodical way, so that you fly certain heights and elevations, and then go
around.
What's
the diameter of this chimney? What are we talking here? Because I'm thinking something so tiny that it's just bouncing off the walls.
No, we're talking about something that's about maybe 8 meters in diameter.
Okay. So there's quite a bit of room in there to turn around and kind of pivot and not just be bouncing off the side.
Yeah. But you get a lot of debris in there, and you get a lot of dust, and then when you bounce off the surface of the chimney, you get debris, things falling off, which creates a more difficult environment for it to fly in.
And there can't be GPS signal inside that thing either.
GPS.
So this is just totally manual.
Totally manual.
Now that's when your hands are really shaking.
Yeah, that's pretty scary.
What happens if the drone falls down? Does it just go in some weird combustion area where they're just, all right, well, we just got to turn this sucker back on and just burn that drone up? And
well, not in that case, because it was where it fell, you could reach it and hook it out, and that's how we put the device in and out with a hook through a manway.
Oh, so you didn't go in through the top?
No, we didn't go in through the top.
It doesn't seem practical now that I think about it, but that's how I imagine it was just like this drone dropping right
through the bottom if we can.
Okay.
Yeah, but we do other confined space inspections of COCA units on refineries where you're flying in much more confined areas where you have, a COCA unit can be maybe 4 meters diameter, lots of things sticking out to get caught on. You've got drawings of that unit, so you kind of imagine it. We're sitting in a big space in here, but imagine you haven't been in here, but you're building up a picture in your head of what that looks like. You fly it first-person view, and you go in there, and then you have to try and remember where you're flying in order to get back out. So those are some of the more challenging inspections that we do.
It's like a video game.
Those ones they're a bit more like a video game. So you need to be calm. You need to watch your battery levels. You need to make sure that you have you know exactly how to get out of that environment quickly so they don't get caught inside. But if you do leave it in there, the oil company will say, guess what? We're shutting the door and we're turning the unit back on, and you can say goodbye to that drone.
Of course.
So
that's why drones are drones. They're disposable, relatively disposably priced.
Yeah, so you have to have that discussion beforehand about if it's a particularly complex job, then we'll say to the oil company, right, there's a high high chance that we might not get this out. So are you prepared to share the risk with us on this project?
Are these chimneys the same as like flare tip inspections that I've been so kind of, when I found out about you guys, I was just obsessed with the fact that, oh my God, this is perfect. That was like the first use case that I saw, like industrial use case. So
that's the most obvious.
Is this the same or is this a little bit different that you're
different.
talking about? So what is a flare tip inspection and why is that important?
So a flare on a gas plant or an oil platform, its primary purpose is a safety device. So if something goes wrong on that facility, if you have a vessel which is about to blow up or you have valves that you can't close, one thing that you can do to get rid of this massive inventory of gas, which could cause an explosion, is to get it up the flare as fast as possible and burn it. And therefore, you're reducing the risk of having an explosion on the facility. So its primary purpose is as a safety device. So it's a critical piece of infrastructure. And that's the same on an offshore oil rig as it is on a plant. And some facilities, offshore you only have one flare. Some facilities onshore, they'll have more than one flare so they can alternate between whichever one they want to use. But a lot of plants only have one. So it's a single point of failure for a gas plant or an oil rig. So you can't inspect a flare tip. Historically, you couldn't inspect one unless you climbed up there. So you have to shut it down. Guys like me would then climb all the way up to the top.
That's what you used to do?
Yeah. You go to the top, digital camera, a notebook and pencil, you climb all over it, you then write down as many things as you can about the condition of it, and then you go back down and then you speak to the manufacturer of that equipment and say, these are the things that I found wrong. What do we need to do in order to maintain it, or do we need to replace it?
Commercial Drones FM is supported by Deveron UAS. Deveron UAS is building a standardized drone network for farmers all across North America, offering on-demand, near real-time field-level data when you want it. To learn more about how you can achieve scalable data collection in agriculture, visit deveronuas.com. That's deveronuas.com. Genius New York is the world's largest business accelerator competition for unmanned systems. In addition to $3 million in startup funding, the program offers company stipends, housing, resources, programming, and networking opportunities. Genius New York is currently accepting early-stage technology companies who are focused on hardware, software, and data analytics related to unmanned systems. Applications are open until October 1st, so go apply now at geniusny.com. That's geniusny.com.
I remember hearing about it could cost millions of dollars or something per day, or $1 million a day, if a company had to shut down a flare stack for a person to climb up the side of it and inspect. Now with the drone, well, first, A, is that figure somewhat correct, and how much money could that cost a company to shut down a flare stack? And B, with a drone, you don't have to shut down the flare stack?
No, you don't. We do it live. So we have a team right now in Africa that's been there a month, and they're inspecting a flare. And the reason they're inspecting that flare is because there's a problem with it. And they're going to have to replace the flare tip. They know that. But we're providing them with a daily condition report of that flare.
Oh, they're throwing up a drone every day.
We're doing it every day. We're doing a daily inspection of the flare tip, and we're finding things that are going wrong, bolts that are coming off the flanges on a daily basis. So there's a number of bolts that are holding on the flare tip, and we're finding that the bolts are loosening on a daily basis. And so we're giving confidence to the operator that it's still safe to operate based upon the condition.
And it's worth it. That's where I'm getting it. So
yeah.
It's worth it to have a crew there every day to do that, rather than shutting it down.
Because the production rates of that, it's an FPSO, are $1.5 million a day. Okay.
FPSO, hold on, floating
production, storage, offloading vessel. So it looks like a tanker.
So it's a boat.
It's a ship. It looks like a.
So we're not even talking on.
It's at sea.
It's at sea.
It's at sea. Yeah.
So this is another thing that I wanted to ask you, and thank you for reminding me. Well, hold on a second. How much money though does that cost to shut that thing down?
Well, the shutdown. All companies talk about loss of production. So
loss of, okay.
Yeah. If you're talking, it's $1.5 million a day. So they've already So in this particular case, there's a helicopter coming from Norway that's making its way through Europe and Africa. It's a particular type of helicopter that can do a flare tip changeout in a day. So it'll lift up the old flare tip, take it off, lift up the new flare tip and put it on, and then guys will climb up and they'll put that on in a shift. They'll switch it over. So they only have to be shut down for one day to do that. So in the lead up to that process, we inspect it every day. If it looks like it's going to be a catastrophic failure and the thing is going to be a missile, then they will shut down because they don't want to obviously harm the people that are on board. So if we provide them with as much information as they need, then the engineers that are making that assessment with some degree of confidence can say, okay, we know we've got a problem, but we're monitoring it and we have a solution. If you don't have the knowledge, you can't make an engineering decision and you have to shut down. That's how it operates in the oil and gas industry.
So how many people work at Cyberhawk? Like, what can you paint me the picture of, like, what's like the operational kind of landscape like? It sounds like you guys have operations all around the world.
Yeah, we have. We operate from our main office in the UK, but we have satellite offices everywhere. But our operational teams are usually deployed from the UK, and they'll be working in places like, as far as Papua New Guinea or Australia or Ghana or Nigeria, Norway, just about everywhere you can think of. In our company, there's about 50 people, and we have full-time pilots who only fly. We have inspection engineers who are focused on oil and gas inspection. We have inspection engineers who are focused on utilities, which is transmission towers. And we have inspection engineers who are focused on wind turbines. Then we have a software division that devises software solutions for those verticals. We have a sales team. I think that's kind of...
That's good. So how does it work then? Just, thinking, so does it matter if the person, let me rephrase this. I think you guys are being hired far and wide. You're traveling halfway across the world in some cases from your HQ to go do these jobs for these companies. And because you guys are pros, you guys know what you're doing. You have been there, you've done that, you've been on the side yourself, you've seen it with your own two eyes, you've touched it with your hands. So the people that are flying the drones and then preparing the reports, do most of these people have backgrounds in this as well? I can imagine sometimes like the operators of the drones, maybe the pilots, maybe don't have that much oil and gas experience?
Yeah,
okay.
They don't. So what we've done is we've taken a variety of people from various backgrounds to try and work out what the best skill set is for a pilot. And initially we trained remote control helicopter enthusiasts. And we work with guys who were either sponsored or had their own businesses who were very good at flying 3D helicopters.
Wow.
So we
because this was like really high stakes stuff.
Yeah.
We're not talking like a little photogrammetric mapping mission. We're talking...
No, we're talking about complex flying where you're terrified that things are going to go wrong and you have, a BMW 3 Series. That's what I always tell a guy. Imagine you have a BMW 3 Series up there doing the inspection. You don't want to lose that. That's the value. That's the value of the tool, but reputationally, if we have something go wrong, it's much larger than that. So it's really important that we work safely and we work effectively. So we tried guys who are remote control hobbyists, and we trained them up, and we found that they were very highly skilled pilots, but they had no experience working in industrial environments. So they weren't used to being on oil rigs or refineries.
Fly to the... XYZ widget, if someone's, so when this is happening, is someone kind of talking in their ear, like, this is what we need to see, this is, maybe someone from the client's experts is kind of telling them what to look at, or you have this all planned out previously?
Yeah. So we know how to inspect the various assets, and we work with two-man teams, so we have a pilot who's there solely to capture the data and keep it safe, and we want his eyes on the drone. We don't want him looking anywhere else. And then right beside him, or a matter of meters away, we have a payload operator, and he's controlling the camera, and they're communicating constantly. He'll be capturing the images or capturing the videos, whatever the case may be, but he'll be the inspection engineer. He's only really interested in capturing the data to write a compelling inspection report. The pilot is there to make sure that it's done safely effectively, and then we get the thing back in a box and back to the office.
Very focused.
So the roles are clearly defined, and we do have a little bit of overlap where we've had, right now we have one of our inspection engineers who's been with us 5 years, and he's saying, actually, I would like to get trained as a pilot. So we're cross-training him as a pilot, and we have one of our pilots who has an engineering background, and he wants to get cross-trained as an inspection engineer. But for right now, we actually have them quite separate in their roles.
Nice. So one of my last questions is hardware. What kind of hardware you guys are using? So when I found out about you guys back in 2013, it seemed like you were using almost exclusively Ascending Technologies Falcon 8s. So those are those 8-rotor, multi-rotor systems made by the German company Ascending Technologies, who has now been acquired by Intel, and Intel has them. What kind of hardware are you guys using for these types of missions today? And is it still the same type of platform?
So we started working with Ascending Technologies in 2009, which is quite a long time ago now. And when we first went to Aztec, as we call them, and we explained what we wanted to do with drones, they said to us, you're doing everything with a drone you shouldn't do. That's not what it's designed for. It's designed for aerial photography. You want to fly close to flares. You want to fly underneath oil rigs. This is not what it's designed for. You're going to have issues with magnetic interference, all sorts of things. We didn't know this at the time. They told us afterwards that they had a kind of a decision to make. Do we want to work with Cyberhawk, these sort of lunatics who want to push the technical capabilities of the platform, or not? And they thought that it would help their business if they work with us, because we'd really push the technology and what it was capable of achieving, and that ultimately would benefit their other customers who were doing aerial photography. Those other customers now no longer exist because they've migrated to cheaper things like DJI Phantoms. So in the early days, we would get people contacting us and say, I've come across your website and we want to buy the Cyberhawk. And we would say, we actually don't manufacture the Cyberhawk.
That one of those people might have been me, to be honest. I was like, who is this? And I remember trying to track down who makes this drone, and I was probably typing in Google, like, who makes the Cyberhawk drone, and somehow I came across it. I'm not surprised at all, because you set the standard. Like I mentioned before, like for me, I was like, this is how you do a professional. These people are way ahead of the curve. They're outside of America, where there was not even at the time a 333 exemption process to do commercial operations, and you guys were out there using these drones, and it looked like, and now I'm so happy to hear that you're still using this platform, and to hear this story, and that it just must have been, it hasn't changed, it seems like, from the outside. Like, it was just the perfect, they inadvertently designed the perfect, one of the best inspection multi-rotor platforms. Yeah,
I mean, to be honest, when we were pushing the technology in the early days, it had limitations. But they came out with a triple redundant autopilot system called Trinity. They upgraded the motors, and we were able to fly much more complex.
Is that legit? Like, why do we need a triple autopilot system? I'm wondering, I was thinking, come on, okay, your marketing, it's not that good, let's be honest, totally frank. Like, did you guys have instances where the autopilot actually, failed?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we had issues where, when you think of it, it's a computer. That's what it is, right? It's a flying computer. And if you have something go wrong with your computer, you turn it off and turn it on again, that tends to fix it. That's no different to a drone.
So maybe you guys, with your feedback then, in these super high stakes situations, your hands are shaking, you flying a BMW 3 Series above this super valuable asset from this very important client, then maybe that was the inspiration to do the Trinity then. I'm sure you guys have a really close relationship over these many years. Yeah. DJI doesn't have, they're obviously the most popular drone manufacturer in the world right now, but they probably don't have relationships with customers like you and now Intel, Ascending Technologies, or whatever, have had working drones, working with drones, doing business with them for that long.
That's true. I think we've got something like 18,000 flights now with a Falcon 8.
Damn.
So, and it's all been in industrial environments, not, hobby horsing around in a field. It's doing technical flying. And for me, I'm delighted that Ascending Technologies has become part of the Intel family, because that is a company which can truly revolutionize the capability of that machine. There's no doubt about it. So we have a really exciting roadmap with Intel, and I don't know if you caught the keynote.
I did. It was very impressive. So for someone that didn't see it, Intel's Brian Krzanich, I think. There's a Z and an I, and
they call him BK.
BK.
Yeah.
So BK was up on stage doing a keynote at AVSI's Exponential Conference, and then he showed off a Intel Falcon 8 platform with Intel RealSense flying around a bridge, a fake little paper mache bridge, which was almost life size, that they brought to the conference and flew around it autonomously. So that's really interesting. You guys will have less shaky hands when the drone's flying more autonomously, I guess.
I mean, what we've seen in this this sort of, in the use of this technology, is we haven't seen what they call the hockey stick in terms of
of growth.
We just haven't seen that yet, and the reason we haven't seen that is, despite what the manufacturers will tell you, if you want to do a complex inspection job, at the start you need to be pretty skilled. So you need to be good at your flying. And at the other end, at the moment, we still have a difficult problem to solve with the data processing. We have men sitting in the computers for days writing reports. So until we figure out those two conundrums at either end of the data flow, we're not going to see the exponential growth. But I'm pretty sure that Intel has a plan for that.
I think they do.
So,
wow. So, Chris, I could sit here talking to you for quite a few hours about this. There's so many topics I still want to cover, but we got to cut it off now, unfortunately. But Chris Fleming, CEO of Cyberhawk, thank you so much for joining us on Commercial Drones FM. If you guys want, listeners, you can go ahead and follow Cyberhawk on Twitter @TheCyberhawk, and check out the website, which is what inspired me years ago, which is thecyberhawk.com, www.thecyberhawk.com. And while you're at it, you can go ahead and follow the podcast on Twitter @DronesPodcast, on Facebook as well. And then if you want, you can also subscribe and support the podcast with $1 a month is the starting kind of support threshold. And then with that $1 a month, it gets you access to our private Facebook group where you can join other like-minded commercial drone professionals to talk about some cool stuff behind closed doors and just get in on that community. And you can do that and learn more at patreon.com/dronespodcast, patreon.com/dronespodcast. Chris, thank you so much for joining us. Any last parting thoughts before we go ahead and cut off the mics?
Well, that's. I thought we were finished.
Another drink, huh? You were done. You were checked out. Let's have a little cheers.
Yeah, here's to a great conference and an emerging technology which is going to revolutionize asset inspection forever. How about that?
I love it. I think that's great. So with that, we'll go ahead and we'll check out. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode of Commercial Drones FM. Cheers.